Hello and welcome back to the channel. My name is Krashy, and with me today we got the Content Cowboy Spragels back again. How you doing?
Hey, dude, how are you? Good to see you.
I like that one. Have we done this one yet? I don't know.
The finger guns, they rarely come out, but sometimes you do need to just shoot your fingers up into the air.
Absolutely true. So another two-part video. We got this one's going to be the first half where we're going to be talking about the new items, just specifically the new items. I mean, we can probably talk some other items as well because we'll, kind of goes hand in hand. And then over on Spragels Channel, or if you're, whichever part you're watching, we're going to be talking about first impressions, talking about the game, how we're feeling, how it, what we're excited about, things all of that nature. So definitely make sure you're checking out the pinned comments in both, and checking out both videos. Yeah,
awesome. Yeah, dude, let's do it. I mean, it's so funny because I remember the night of the release, both of us were kind of overwhelmed with what was going on. There were new items, there was so much new stuff, and these new items I really do think have helped the meta so much because they've more specialized people who are doing damage in some ways. And then there's let's just get into them. Let's start talking about these.
Yeah, so first and foremost, I'm gonna get this out of the way because it's driving me crazy. I hate the weakness policy's name. I hate it. I don't know why. I can't commit it to memory. I keep going like, oh, what is that? The third one. Like I keep getting lost. I don't know why. It's a me thing. It has nothing to do with the item. But we've got weakness policy. We have the choice specs, and our third item is the razor claw. And to me, it kind of feels like they're like targeting niches, right? Do you feel the same way with that?
Absolutely. Yeah, they definitely were. There's like a special attacker, maybe support targeting there, like the special attacker kind of supporters like Mime and Eldegoss. And then there's definitely the heavy attack damage, speedsters and I guess some of the all-rounders too. And then there's the weakness policy. Yeah, so which one do you want to jump into first? Because I've got thoughts about all of them for sure. I do think you nailed it when you brought up the fact that I was incredibly overwhelmed. I'm feeling much more whelmed. I don't know if anybody's an Office fan, but I'm feeling much more whelmed now, and I have some good opinions, I think, and I'm still learning. That's the thing. My disclaimer will always be I'm not 100%. I'm still learning. I'm still figuring out how I feel and testing things out. So. My disclaimer is that I know everything. I'm like Dr. Manhattan, so I actually know what's going on before other people, but at the same time, I kind of want to let the world play itself out, so I can't reveal too much. That's where I am. That's
completely fair. So, Spraggles, pick one of the three. Let's go.
Let's start talking about the choice specs, because I actually think the choice specs are really interesting, and I have some issues with the choice specs. I'm just going to read off what they do, if that's okay.
Yeah.
So at, I guess this would be for a level 30 item, you get plus 39 special attack, just a base special attack increase. When dealing damage with a move, you deal additional damage by a minimum of 60 plus 40% of your special attack when it hits. That's obviously on a scale of 40, 50, 60 minimum and 30, 40% special attack, and this extra damage only applies to one target every 8 seconds. So my first thought here is, when I was testing this item, is the fact that it applies to one target and the fact that it only happens every 8 seconds makes this a really tough item for me to want to pick up. That's my first thought. Is, let's say you're doing an area damage with someone, you're Gardevoir, and you're landing Psyshock or something like that. One of those is going to get the increased damage on someone inside there every 8 seconds. It just feels so strangely inconsistent in some ways.
Yeah, so I haven't actually particularly felt this way. And I think the reason why I may be on the opposing end of this, but you're not wrong. But maybe the reason why I'm feeling differently about this is because, especially with certain SP attackers, it just almost feels like they have no item options. And when you have Wise Glasses, and Wise Glasses weak, I mean, I have done a whole video talking about how Wise Glasses is very particular, because you have to not only look at the character's SP scaling to know if that it's good, but you have to look at their ability scaling to know that if it's worth running. And so I could list off 3 actual SP characters that are not even worth using it on. Like Pikachu, like Wise Glasses, not good. Venusaur, Wise Glasses, not good. Ninetales, Wise Glasses, not good. So it's like those characters are already kind of in this weird spot where, like, because of the way that the equations work and because of the way that their characters work, you don't even run that. So choice specs for me, it almost feels like their attempt at like solving a problem that they themselves created. And which is weird because I do think that the item is somewhat niche, but I also think that it's good when it does have a reason to be good. It's kind of good. The example I've been most
kinda
using.
Good. You saying kind of good, I think, is a great thought there, because I feel like even when it works, for me, I don't know if it gets out of kind of good, but I want to let you continue.
Yeah, and it may not, and I think the biggest feeling I'm having about the items right now, not even just the new ones, but is that there's like a give or take one item like subjectivity to most builds now, and that's a really cool thing because it gives us a lot of residency to make our own version of a build. And choice specs feels like one of those options. So, for example, one of the characters that I've been really liking choice specs on is Pikachu. I feel like with Electro Ball and like it almost feels like this item was like made for Pikachu to me, because Pikachu you can't really run Wise Glasses on, and just for the sake of explanation, I'm currently like eyeballing Unite DB. Pikachu's Electro Ball, just this is one example, and I'm just going to read the first equation, is 66% SP attack plus 25 times level -1 plus 530. That's the equation how it runs out. So Pikachu has incredibly high SP scaling on their levels. Like when Pikachu levels up, the scaling's good enough, it's going up there, it's great. But Pikachu's ability scaling is so incredibly weak. It's just not good at all. So this item is like a way for you to get damage in the Pikachu build without using Wise Glasses, because again, Wise Glasses just isn't that good. And I should have looked at it. Pikachu has the Electro Ball cooldown is 5 seconds. So while the item isn't gonna, you're not gonna have like 100% uptime with choice specs if you're spamming Electro Ball off cooldown. There's like a 3-second discrepancy there, but it does feel like Electro Ball and choice specs go pretty well together. Like you're gonna be able to hit somebody and throw some extra damage into it and just give a little bit of like oomph to it.
I totally agree with you. There are a few Pokemon where I see this item and I think it's a pretty good choice. And one thing that you said that I think is exactly right is they're trying to fix a problem they created. They didn't have to have this issue where certain Pokemon scale well and certain Pokemon don't scale at all. And Venusaur does all this damage with Solar Beam, but it has like nothing to do
scaling.
with
It has nothing to do with the scaling.
It's very odd. The issue I have with this item, and I recognize that the alternative might be crazy overpowered, but it's that I can't control who I'm getting the extra damage tick on. It's hard to know when, compared to another item they just released like Razor Claw, which is way more consistent. It just feels like I'm throwing down a Thunderbolt or I'm throwing down an Electro Ball. I don't know who that damage is going to pop up on. I don't know if it's going to be useful or it's going to be like, why do I have this little chunk of damage, as opposed to, I don't know, this is like an argument that we keep going back to, but a buddy barrier, a focus band, etc. However, you're right. Maybe this is just certain Pokemon need choice specs and certain Pokemon need Wise Glasses. A couple could run them both, and this really does fix that weird issue. I do think a few Pokemon too, it would be cool to run choice specs maybe on Mr. Mime, where you're throwing a confusion out maybe every what's the cooldown on it? Probably 8 seconds, 10 seconds, something.
I feel like
that.
they nailed choice specs being around 8 seconds, because even if the cooldowns don't line up, you're not always spitting out the ability, right? Confusion has a 6-second timer, and I'm glad you brought up Mr. Mime, because I was going to say that Mr. Mime has incredible scalings, and this is like, I'm gonna spit out a Mr. Mime build I played with a couple times yesterday. I played Wise Glasses, choice specs, and Buddy Barrier. It's like, I'm here for damage because that's kind of what Mime does, right? Like he kind of just does damage, but I'm also here to support the team with Buddy Barrier. Now, the reality of this build is that I can't look at someone and say that's the build, that's how you play mime, because the truth is you could run score shield in there and you could bully lane, or you could run focus band to have that strong laning phase. And what I feel like they've done, and it's crazy how profound adding 3 items into the game is, they've taken us from solving the builds to having true build subjectivity, and to being able to look at it and be like, yo, that's a good build, but I really like running it this way. You know what I mean? And that's really cool to me. I do think choice specs feels decently niche though. Yeah.
Well, and that's good. I mean, it is cool to have niche items. I know I'm kind of beating up on this item a little bit just because I think another item we'll talk about, Razor Claw, just feels like it does this, but even better for the attackers. However, I do see, I mean, when I think of mime, and a lot of people might not fully understand what we're talking about. I'm sure some people know more than us, but if you head over to Unite DB, you can see scaling on things. So Mr. Mime's a great example of why this might work out well, because the special attack is low. It's only 414 at level 15, which you compare it to someone like Ninetales is like around 1,000. Gardevoir's over 1,000. So it's a low special attack, but really high scaling, meaning that when it does damage, 170% of special attack on confusion is added to the move damage. So an item like choice specs feels really good, where an item like wise glasses maybe isn't as ideal, because getting a boost to your special attack that's already low isn't that useful. So I get it. I get what you're saying. It's just such a weird situation. I feel like a fun mime build might be specs, score shield, and specs again, like special attack specs, choice specs, and score shield, and just really stack that special attack. That could be pretty fun.
And that's the crazy thing. Like, that sounds like a good build, but like, bringing Buddy Barrier to the table is never bad, and then having a focus band for lane's not bad. If you did want to lean damage heavy again, you could go wise glasses and specs on mime. Like, it's stressful, but it's also just like super cool to me to feel like there's options. So you've been talking a lot about Razor Claw. Let's go ahead and jump into it. What are your thoughts on Razor Claw?
I think it's so good. I mean, I have to play with it more, but it feels like it works for so many different Pokemon. I guess for the sake of it, I'll just read it again for the audience. Plus 15 attack base and plus 2.1% crit hit rate. After the Pokemon uses a move, its next basic attack deals 20 plus 50% of your attack stat as additional damage. If this is held by a melee Pokemon, the basic attack also slows the enemy for 2 seconds on a 2-second cooldown. And from using this item, I feel like it has like, what, a 1.5 second cooldown on moves, maybe a 2 second or something like that. But basically, after every move you use, your next basic attack gets a big chunk of boosted damage.
Yeah, you're adding a boosted attack to characters that have boosted attacks.
It's crazy. It's good. I mean, I'm running it on Cinderace. I could see it run on basically every speedster but Gengar. So Greninja could run this well. All rounders. I was running it on Lucario and it was going well. This item is so good, I feel like.
Have you run it on E-Speed Lucario? It feels like insane. I mean, Lucario is insane, so let's not overestimate the item, but this item feels incredibly consistent. One trend, and I don't know if this is intentional, but just attack items in this game far outclass like everything else, it feels like. I mean, don't get me wrong, the defense items are good, but oh my gosh, there's so many like physical attack or normal attack focus items. Even Scope Lens, which is not physical attack focus, but it goes in tandem with it because it's crit base, which deals with physical attack or normal attack, that it just feels so incredibly strong. The problem, and this was like, we had a whole section on my stream where I was like, the problem is which of these items do I put together? Like, how do I know? Like, does Razor Claw feel more valuable than Scope Lens in certain situations? Muscle Band on a lot of attackers or anybody that's doing kind of attack damage doesn't feel like you can ever give Muscle Band up. There's some cases, like I don't think Lucario needs it nearly as much, but like I'm talking Garchomp feels great with it, Charizard feels great with it, Cinderace, Greninja, like all of these characters, I feel like you got to have Muscle Band. So it's like, where do I drop? Is this my third item with other items? Like, that's where I'm getting like scatterbrained. I'm just like, oh gosh, I feel like I just had like 6 drinks at the bar and I'm trying to decide what my build is. How have you been using it? I know you said you brought it up on Cinderace.
Yeah, I mean, and this could be wrong. It's still really early, but basically, when I have Razor Claw, I'm also often running Scope Lens because I'm going, look, if we're doing something with critting and something with attack, I'm just gonna lean into it and go full on crit, and then often muscle band. So on Cinderace right now, I'm running Muscle Razor Scope.
That's my exact build, and we didn't talk about this. Just saying, we landed here, and I love it because beforehand I was basically running that same build with a Buddy Barrier instead of Razor, and I know some people were running like double band Buddy Barrier on Cinderace. I was already kind of leaning into more damage on Cinderace and Greninja, but it feels like I don't necessarily feel like I need the Buddy Barrier on this character anymore because I can just do silly things. I can do this instead.
Yeah, I think that's what we're finding, and that is one of the really cool things about adding all these new items in is maybe you do drop a focus band, maybe you do drop a Buddy Barrier, because before I was running focus band, muscle band, scope lens, because I was just I felt like a little more use sometimes in the early game when someone tried to dive me. So, but now, I'm running band, claw, and scope lens, and it is interesting because you're giving up survivability and you're giving up possible utility for your team with a Buddy Barrier to hopefully deal out more damage. But then again, that is your job as the AD carry. Your job really isn't to give a shield to somebody near you. Your job is to make sure that you can take people down fast. I'm excited to see more Pokemon run this. It just feels like they synergize so well together. I'm wondering what you would drop if you dropped anything. Maybe certain Pokemon, like you mentioned, Krashy, would drop the Muscle Band. I could see dropping it on, Lucario. I could see dropping on even someone like Absol. Not that you probably would, but you keep the crit items and then maybe keep something else.
Yeah, I guess if you felt like you really needed some survivability, then you can lean into like a focus band or something, and that's the crazy thing. I've often had to remind myself that like, hey, focus band and Buddy Barrier are still here. Don't get too crazy. Don't drink the Kool-Aid too much to the point where I'm just completely ignoring what we already know to be great. But speaking of new items, I guess let's go ahead and segue into weakness policy. I gotta say it first and foremost. I just find this item weird. It's just weird, but I think I've gotten a good opinion on it. How are you feeling?
I feel that it's also weird. I totally agree with your issue on the name. I've played a lot of Pokemon, and for some reason, this name didn't even pop into my head as an item that's been in the game. But everyone's like, no, it's in the game. So it's a horribly named item, and I gotta say, for me, the way it works and kind of testing it a little bit right now, I don't want anyone to I really always have to be like, please don't take my advice and ruin yourself with all your item enhancers. I don't want you to be upset with me about this, but right now I have to say it's a big no for me in almost any sense. I can't think of anyone who would use this super well.
Yeah, so I almost feel like I have to put you through what I went through last night, because I was like ranting, raving, and not like ranting, like I wasn't upset, but I was just going on about like, I just don't get this item. Like, who runs this? And like, where do you put it? And then I feel like I started to see like a light, like a small glimmer of hope for this item. And now I'm starting to mess with it more. The thing is like, I think that my issue, what I was having an issue with is like, I was comparing weakness policy to damage items, and it can't hold a flame to damage items. It really can't. But I think where we're starting to and for the sake of saying, I think weakness policy is a literally all-rounder item. It can flex a little bit, and I'm going to talk about a specific build that we ended up playing. Me and one of my friends on stream were playing on Zeraora with weakness policy, but it mostly feels like it is directly targeted at all-rounders. If you're using this as your damage item, I feel like you're going to fall short. Like you're not going to like the way it feels. But I feel like if you use this with damage items, that's whenever I started to be like, okay, I can see this. So in the game now, when you're getting like hit and you have weakness policy, have you seen how you can like see the stacks on things now in the bottom right? So
yeah, you get 4 stacks.
Yeah, I was starting to watch. I was really starting to pay attention to like how often am I really holding 4 stacks? It feels like this item has like a near like it feels like constantly between 2 and 4 stacks. Like I always had it 2 and 4 stacks. So that's like 6% to 12% additional damage, like constantly. It felt like there was never, and it just was never fights that I didn't feel like it was on. I was playing this a lot with Garchomp, was really who I was kind of using as my focus for testing it on. And when I was running this, my original Garchomp build when I was doing damage was scoped, muscle, and buddy barrier. And I now feel like weakness can kind of contest the buddy barrier spot there, because a lot of the time I use that buddy barrier just to give me a little more staying power. But now with Garchomp's ultimate specifically, and just while I'm in there doing damage, Garchomp really feels like the type of character that gets in and stays in. And with weakness, buddy barrier, or weakness, muscle band, and scoped, I feel like I'm doing damage, I'm taking this damage, so then it's pushing my damage higher. If I pop the ultimate, I've got all this damage that I already had, and I'm using this with it. So I'm starting to see that light. But again, I think that the reality is like it's kind of similar to Choice Specs. It's pretty niche. It's a pretty niche build item. And to quickly touch on the Zero Aura, and then I'll stop spitting out words. We tried running. Oh gosh, we ran muscle band, weakness policy, and buddy barrier, and it turned into the situation of like a good offense is a strong defense kind of a build. It's like muscle band is just consistent, felt great, and weakness policy is very, very similar to how Zero Aura's passive works. So it was like we're stacking damage there, and then we had buddy barrier to like when we pop and we're standing in that ult, like we're alive and we're in there, and it felt good. And my buddy Coco dropped like 100k damage on a game where they surrendered with like a minute left. It was shocking.
Wow.
It was shocking. Yeah.
I mean, I won't argue that there are probably some good situations to put it on. It feels, out of the 3, it feels the most niche, as you were saying. It's
agreed.
The most. Everyone saw it. Everyone saw it and goes, "That's a Garchomp item." Everybody saw it, and I totally get where everyone's coming from. I don't think they're wrong. And then at the same time, I'm just going, yeah, I don't know. Or do you just keep a focus band so you stay alive when you start getting chunked down? I know it's tough to go back to this, but that's the unfortunate thing about it. Is that more valuable than something that keeps you alive once every 90 seconds to continue to be Garchomp? I don't know. I have a really hard time with this item, and I think people who use it well are going to probably use it very well. It's a dumb thing to say, but I guess what I'm saying is there's a high skill ceiling here. You've got to know how this item works, and you have to know how it works within your build, because just running it feels like, man, newer players, please replace this with a score shield or a focus band or
I definitely feel like the big point with weakness policy is that when you have it on, you need to play like you have it on. Like you need to know that it's on, and you have to go out of your way to get value out of it. So, and this is the beauty of what I find with these items is the subjectivity of it. If you don't like it, put your focus band back on. If you don't like it, make sure you're running your buddy barrier, because you're going to bring value to the table with these other items. And if I'm looking at you and you're like, yeah, Krashy, I don't know, I just don't really like it. Like, I think I'm going to enjoy Focus Band. I can't, but in last patch, I literally felt like I could look at some players and be like, that's not correct. Like, you can't really run it that way. And now I'm just like, hey, man, do you? I like it. I think I might run it here and there. And the other reality too, and this is a whole layer that we haven't even had a chance to really touch on, is what about whenever your team comp is being built? And you're like, yeah, I think I might need a buddy barrier for this one instead. What about whenever there's an inevitable draft pick and ban phase, and you're like, that team, I think I can shred through them on this one. There's a whole layer of building that we don't even have yet, or we haven't gotten to explore yet, or we just haven't thought deep enough about yet. And man, I love these items. I love these items just for what they're doing to the game, not even specifically just because I love them so much. I'm very impressed with this update in terms of itemization.
I totally agree with you. The only one that I feel like is so niche, I don't even know what to say about, is weakness policy. The other two, I see a lot of Pokemon that you could probably build this on. Weakness policy is going to be those one that one item where I feel like someone's got to crack it. Like you were saying, you've got to like figure it out, figure out the right Pokemon, the right situation, and then they've sort of cracked the code a little bit on that. The other two, choice specs is going to be certain special attackers will benefit from it greatly over Wise Glasses, and it's just going to be the choice, I think. And then Razor Claw, I imagine, is going to be on so many Pokemon, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, and gosh, Razor Claw. I feel like Razor Claw adds a unique problem to the game where it's like I love build subjectivity, but now you're making me have to think too hard. I'm like, I'm it's like that math gif where I'm like seeing all the like the math lines and the equations and the angles, and I'm just like trying to like, wow, what is the best way? Like, do I run muscle and Razor? Do I run scoped and Razor? Do I drop the muscle? Do I take a buddy barrier? Do I bring a focus? But it's awesome, right? Like, it's awesome, and I'm looking forward to seeing what much more talented players than myself will come up with, because hey, trickle down meta is a real thing, and these competitive players, they will find what works very, very effectively because they want to win. And they want to win all the time. I'll let you know
what I'm doing. I'll give you some tips.
Okay. Yeah, definitely drop a guide. Well, hey, man, I think that's a really solid new item discussion, and we've got a lot more to talk about. So, friends, thank you all for joining us. Spragels, thank you for being here on my side of the pond. As always, be sure to be kind to one another. Tell someone that you love them, and we'll see you on